Hello grade 5 and welcome back. I hope you had a lovely restful long weekend, and if you celebrate Easter that you had a brilliant chocky filled time. I am ready and raring to get going with some more natural science, but before we learn what our topic and content we're going to be covering today is, I thought we would start by recapping some of the things we learned last week. So just as a reminder, we are looking at a section of science that your teachers will know is called Life and Living. And we started learning last week how to classify animals into their different classes. First, looking at whether they fall under the vertebrate or invertebrate families, vertebrates being those with backbones and invertebrates those without. And then from there, separating the vertebrates into their 5 different classes, those being birds, mammals, reptiles, fish and amphibians, and the invertebrates, into their 3 different classes of arthropods, mollusks and flatworms. And we looked at all the different features that those different families of animals have. Now, last night I was reading to my little girl, I've got a 4-year-old daughter, I was reading to her bedtime story, and as I was reading it, it struck me that this would be a brilliant starter to today's science lesson. The story is called The Monkey Puzzle, and it's by an author called Julia Donaldson. She's very famous for children's literature. You may know of her story, The Gruffalo. It's probably one of her most famous books. But The Monkey Puzzle is a story about a little monkey who travels through the jungle because he's lost his mum, and as he's travelling he meets a very friendly butterfly who helps him look for her and takes him through the jungle, meeting lots of different animals along their way. And I'm going to read this to you. So natural science today is going to start as story time. I'm going to read this story to you and I'll show you a few pictures as we go. And what I would like you to do is get a pen and paper ready. And as I'm going through the story, I'd like you to write down all the animals that you hear of or see, and whether they fall as vertebrates, invertebrates, and which family of vertebrates or invertebrates they come under. Okay, are you ready? Then let's go. I've lost my mum. Hush, little monkey, don't you cry. I'll help you find her, said Butterfly. Let's have a think. How big is she? She's bigger than me, said the monkey. Bigger than you? Well, then I've seen your mum. Come, little monkey. Come, come, come. No. That's an elephant. My mum isn't a great grey hunk. She doesn't have tusks or a curly trunk. She doesn't have thick, baggy knees, and anyway, her tail coils around trees. She coils around trees? Well, then she's very near. Quick, little monkey, she's over here. No, that's a snake. Mum doesn't look a bit like this. She doesn't slither about and hiss. She doesn't curl around eggs, and anyway, my mum's got more legs. It's legs you're looking for, you say. I know where she is then. Come this way. No, that's a spider. Mum isn't black and hairy and fat. She's not got so many legs as that. She'd rather eat fruit than swallow flies, and she lives in the treetops way up high. She lives in the trees? Well, then you should have said. She's been above us. She's above our heads. No, that's a parrot. Mum's got a nose, not a beak. She doesn't squawk and squabble and shriek. She doesn't have claws or feathery wings. And anyway, she leaps and springs. Ah, I've got it. She leaps about. Well, then she's just round the corner, without a doubt. No, that's a frog. Butterfly, please don't joke. Mum's not green. She doesn't croak. She's not all slimy. Oh dear, what a muddle. She's brown and furry and nice to cuddle. Brown fur? Why didn't you tell me so? We'll find her in no time. Off we go. No, that's a bat. Why do you keep on getting it wrong? Mum doesn't sleep the whole day long. I told you she's got no wings at all. And anyway, she's not nearly so small. Your mum's not little? Well, now let me think. She's down by the river, having a drink. No, that's the elephant again. Butterfly, butterfly, can't you see? None of these creatures look like me. She looks like you. You never told me she looks like you. Of course I didn't. I thought you knew. I didn't. I couldn't, you see. None of my babies look like me. She looks like you. Well, in that case, we'll soon discover her hiding place. No, 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 that's my dad. Come, little monkey, come, come, come. It's time I took you home to Mum. Right, I hope you were taking note of all the animals that we met along the way. If you didn't, you can press pause, rewind your video and listen to my story again. But if you did, let's now take a little look at the different animals we met and their classes. Okay, so in the story, the first animal we came across obviously was the monkey, and that animal is a vertebrate. Monkeys come under the mammal family of vertebrates. What came next? The butterfly. Butterflies are invertebrates and they come under arthropods because they are insects. After the butterfly was the elephant. Now, an elephant is again a mammal, very different from the monkey, but still a mammal and therefore a vertebrate. Then we came across the snake, and it even said in the story that the snake was coiled around some eggs. Gives you a hint that obviously it is a reptile, as reptiles lay eggs and reptiles are vertebrates. The next animal in the story was the spider. The spider is an invertebrate. It is an arachnid and falls under the arthropod family. We then met the parrot. A parrot, obviously having claws and feathers, is a bird and it's a vertebrate. Then came the frog. And it even said, and again in the story, it was slimy and green. And remember, and it showed a picture of it living near a lake or stream. A frog is an amphibian, a vertebrate. And lastly was the bat. The bat is again a mammal, and I want you to take notice of how different the mammals are. We have one that flies, one that is a herbivore, although two that are herbivores but of very different shapes and sizes. So the bat is a vertebrate and a mammal. So well done if you got that right. And it's a silly little activity, I know, but it's funny how you can take something as simple as a children's storybook and find some science in there if you look carefully enough. Okay, so the other things that we covered in our previous lesson to this was we looked at the skeleton. We looked at there being 3 types of skeletons in the animal kingdom. And just to remind you now, those 3 types are endoskeletons, which is a skeleton that all vertebrates have on the inside of our bodies. They're fabulous because they grow with us as we grow up. Or invertebrates, having 2 different types of skeleton, depending on which invertebrate they are. Exoskeletons for arthropods. Those are skeletons on the outside, like a suit of armour, but however, though strong, they don't grow with the animal, and often the animal, as they get bigger, have to shed their skeleton and grow a new one. Or hydrostatic skeletons for mollusks and flatworms, and these are pretty much just made of liquid fluids and water. And the other thing we learnt last week were the different functions of our skeleton, and the main 3 functions being to support your body and give you shape, to protect vital organs on the inside of your body, and to allow you to move. So what are we going to do today? So today we are going to be learning about some of the names and functions of the bones within the human body. And so I'd like you now to pay very close attention, because what we're going to go through will become the memo for your activity to do at the end of this lesson. So have a little look at the picture in front of you of the human skeleton and see how many of the bones the arrows are pointing to that you can name. In a second, I'm going to give them labels and we will then go through the different functions of those bones. So let's see how many you got right. At the top of our bodies, we have the skull, the clavicle, and the rib cage. The clavicle, by the way, sorry, it's not very clear on the diagram, is actually this bone that goes across from your shoulder into the center of just underneath your neck. We have your spine, your hand bones, the patella, which is the scientific name for your knee, your foot bones, your scapula, your humerus, radius and ulna, pelvis, femur, and tibia and fibula. Now we're going to learn about each of these bones in a bit more detail right now. So let's start with the skull at the top of your body. The skull is very important, as we know, because it is used to protect your brain, which is the control center for the rest of your body. There are 29 bones altogether in your skull and in your jaw, and they may basically provide a box in which to store your brain and protect your eyes and your ears. Just so you know, one of the fabulous things about your ears is inside your ears you have the smallest bones of your body. And I will be very impressed if you can find out the names of the 3 smallest bones in your human body that are inside your ear. Okay, moving on to the next one, we have the clavicle. And it's not very clear on the central diagram, so I've given you a picture here. It shows you the clavicle. This comes across from your shoulder to just underneath your neck. It's also called the collarbone, and it joins the sternum, which is to the part of your chest, to the shoulder. They support your arm and make force from your arm to the central skeleton. So they're very, very important, but they're also very easy to break. I've seen in my time as a teacher, lots of children breaking their clavicle by doing silly things like jumping off of bunk beds and things like that. So be very careful. Look after your clavicle. The next bones we have are the rib cage. Now, obviously, they're made up of individual ribs, but as a collective, we call them the rib cage. Their main job is to protect. They protect the heart, the lungs, and many of the upper organs. There are 24 little curved bones, including the sternum, which runs down the middle. So if you have a look here on this diagram, that's the sternum there. The spine. The spine is made up of 24 individual small bones called vertebrae. And if you remember from our work on vertebrates, that is where that name comes from for animals that have a backbone. Your spine supports your head, which is, by the way, the heaviest part of your body. So it takes a lot of support to keep it upright. And it also obviously gives the rest of our body shape. Each of the bones in the spine are linked by small joints which can move just a little. Lots of small movements up and down your spine allow you to bend. But remember, the spine not only gives you shape and supports your head, but it's also got the very important job of protecting the spinal cord, which runs down the center. So we don't want it to move too much because we don't want that spinal cord to ever be damaged. Hand bones. There are lots of bones in your hands, and in fact, if you hold your hand up to your face and you wiggle, you should be able to see some of them moving. There are bones in your wrist, which are called carpals, palms, which are called metacarpals, and your fingers, and I quite like this word, phalanges. Those are the words for your fingers. The patella. The patella is the bone in your kneecap. It's a triangular shaped bone at the front of and sits at the front of your knee joint. It protects your knee joint. It's very important. So if you have a little look here, I've actually got an X-ray of a knee joint there. The foot bones. There are 26 foot bones altogether, and they can make an arc in which to support your body when you stand up. So they're actually very, very similar to your fingers, but obviously have evolved into proper feet. Now the scapula, again, it's not very clear on this diagram, so you may wish to look here. The scapula is this triangular shaped bone that you have on either side of your shoulder. It's also called the shoulder blade. It lies at the back of the upper ribs, and it helps with the movement of the arms and the shoulders. The humerus. The humerus is your upper arm bone. It is a long bone that goes between your shoulder and your elbow. And I always remember the name humerus because it's connected to your funny bone, which is obviously very humorous. Very bad teacher joke there, sorry. Now your lower arm is actually made of two main bones. You have the radius and the ulna. Now the radius is on the thumb side, so if you hold up your hand in front of you and you wiggle your thumb, down here is your radius, and the two bones swivel over each other when you twist your wrist. Okay, so they're very, very important, but they're often also very easily broken. And I'll show you some X-rays of broken bones a little later. It's very ouch. Now your pelvis, some people call them the hip bones, but the scientific term is your pelvis, and it's shaped almost like a bowl. It holds all the organs in the lower part of your body, so that includes your reproductive organs and many of your digestive organs, such as your intestines. And it's slightly movable. Of course, we need it to move to be able to move our hips, but we don't again want it to move too much, similarly to our spine, because it does a very important job of protecting organs. Now we move on to the femur. This is sometimes called the thigh bone. It is the longest bone in the body and one of the strongest. So therefore, answering the question from last week, what is the longest, strongest? It is the femur. It helps support your weight when you stand. So it's very, very important. If you ever break your femur, then you've really, really done something wrong, or you may have some problem with brittle bones, because it is, as I said, supposed to be the strongest bone in the human body. So just like the upper arm is made of one bone and the lower arm is made of two, it's the same in your leg. The upper part of your leg, the femur, is one bone, but underneath that, underneath the patella, you have two bones, the tibia and fibula. Now, I always think they sound like some kind of, I don't know, characters from Cinderella, maybe the ugly sisters, the tibula and fibula. But these bones are very important as well, of course. The tibia is the thicker one and in front of your shin, and the fibula is the thinner one. They both hold the lower leg muscles in place, so without them you wouldn't be able to move your leg. But they don't give much support and they're not very strong. So again, if you ever break your leg, which I really hope you don't, but if you ever have, it's usually one of these two bones that you have broken. So a quick question for you now. I did answer this last week, so let's see if you were paying attention last week. How many bones are there in the human body altogether? In a full-grown adult, someone like myself, are there 206, 90, or 136? Now I'm going to click on the answer below. I'm going to say it's 206. And of course, I'm right. Most of us have around 206 bones in our body. And when I say most of us, please remember it is because younger people have less bones. And as they grow from infancy into an adult, they get more, the bones fuse together and they create one bone. So what I've got in front of you now are some pictures of some X-rays, and I'd like you to take a very close look and see if you can guess what bones these X-rays are showing. So you may wish to pause your video now. I'm just going to move my screen down slightly because they don't all fit on the screen. Pause your video and see if you can name them. Okay, so in the top corner here are very, very easy. We obviously have hand bones. Now remember, the wrist part of the hand, we have carpals. In the middle section of the hand, we have metacarpals, and the fingers, my favorite word, phalanges. Over here, this middle picture here shows the patella, not the humerus, sorry, that's your arm bone, the femur, and then we have the tibia and fibula. This one is a nice clear picture of someone's rib cage. You can actually see the spine going down, the rib cage going around, and this here is the heart. Yeah, there, and these are our lungs, a set of healthy lungs. They've got no spots or marks on them. Now down here in the bottom, we have an arm, a picture of an arm. This here is someone's humerus, which fits into a ball and socket joint, which is the radius and ulna coming off. And then these two pictures, the last two, show different views of someone's foot. This is obviously the top view of their foot. There's their big toe and their baby toe there. And this is a side view. And it's quite nice because you can clearly see that arc that we spoke about earlier. Now, here's two ouch pictures. These show X-rays of broken bones. Now, when you break a bone, you can have a fracture, such as this. This is a very bad break here. So this picture actually shows a bone that is snapped entirely. And I don't know if you can see here, but it shows it's actually poking out through the skin. Must have been incredibly sore and very, very high impact accident for that to occur. And again, this picture here, so by the way, sorry, I should have said this is obviously this is the humerus coming down here. The humerus has split and it's actually fractured here in two sections. Again, must have been incredibly painful. So please be careful when you are doing anything that you look after those bones, eating lots of calcium and have taken in lots of vitamin D so your body can absorb that calcium to keep those bones strong. And you get your calcium from your dairy products, but also your leafy green vegetables. Now on the screen for you now, if I can just get rid of that toolbar, it'd be a bit clearer. On the screen for you now, I have put the sheet which I am loading up as your homework for this afternoon. I have first of all asking you to label this skeleton here with all the bones that we've gone over today. And on this side is what we call a closed procedure. So I have a couple of paragraphs of writing with some spaces, and you are to fill in the spaces with the correct words. Now, I've not provided the words. I will in the memo, but here I would like you to try your hardest to see if you can work them out. There are bones in the human skeleton, and these are divided into 4 groups based on their shape. There are bones, 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 and bones. So now I haven't done that with you. That is a little bit of extra research I'd like you to do for me, is what are the 4 different shapes of bones that are found in vertebrates? Particularly in this case, obviously a human, but in all vertebrates there are 4 shaped bones. Our bones are the skeleton does 3 very important jobs. It helps us to something around, it supports the something, and it's something the organs inside the body. Now earlier I remember saying to you, pay close attention because this will help you as part of your homework. The longest bone in the body is the what? And the smallest bone in our bodies are, and there's 3 names there. Now I remember telling you that they are in the ear. Your job is to research them for me. So thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for some more natural science. Don't forget to find your homework activities from WorksheetCloud.com. And to also make sure that you do your English and your math activities as well and listen to those lessons. Have a fabulous day further, and I'll see you soon.